Maestro raised an eyebrow, quickly calculating the expected size of the demon from the ritual being performed, for such rituals were known to him, even if not practiced. He considered how far he could get if he made a run for it, especially if the summoned monstrosity ate one of the others first. Of course, it would be better if it was Tobias, and it would just be his luck if it didn't eat that damnable book that he was writing. On a positive note, however, this would all be good material for his own book, covering the subjects of demons and how to protect against them. He had been writing since their encounter with the portal in Altdorf. Rysandria was quick to point out, "Gentlemen, I believe, considering our opponents, that spilling their blood at this juncture would cause us more trouble in the long term. It would be wise to avoid doing that, for this is a sacrifice after all." "Yes, we don't want a portal opening up and Maestro utilising another drop spell, making it explode," Dieter added, much to the aforementioned wizard's growing annoyance at this topic's repetition once more. "I only did that once, Dieter," Maestro jabbed his staff at the trainee physician. "But yes, I agree with you, Rysandria, on this," continued the wizard. "Sacrificial ceremonies and blood get on just like a house on fire." Tobias piped up. "This is all well and good, but I don't think your shaved ape is paying any attention to us right now." Leibniz, in the time leading up to now, had killed all but 2 of the brothers of the Axe. These 2 remaining members saw the angered Kislevite rush forwards, his scimitar and shield at the ready, his mind set on eliminating them all. Leibniz pointed at them. "Destroy them! They must not interfere!" The 2 men grabbed the great axes lying on the floor nearby and went to intercept them. Dieter and Tobias also moved forward, catching up with Tordrad. Dieter snapped at the halfling. "Midget, get that damn skull!" Tobias rolled his eyes at Dieter's words, but knew that this was a sound plan, and he moved ahead as the 4 men clashed with the Brotherhood guards, who stepped in to protect the ceremony. As they fought, Tobias made his way around the chamber behind Leibniz and kicked the man in the back of his knee, making him fall forwards. In the confusion, the skull flew off of his neck and clattered onto the ground. The halfling gave chase to it, but Leibniz caught up with him in 2 large strides, cutting him off. Tordrad barely dodged to the left as one of the brothers of the Axe made a swipe with the weapon that derived from their title, the blow coming within barely half an inch of connecting with the Kislevite's neck. In retaliation, Tordrad lashed out with his scimitar, almost severing the head of his opponent in one fell swoop. A second was not needed. Dieter ran his opponent through with his machete, moving with remarkable speed to avoid the incoming blows. Maestro, noticing Leibniz had now cornered Tobias with a sacrificial dagger poised to strike, spoke the lines to what was probably his most well-practiced magic incantation. A drop spell. The dagger fell from Leibniz's grip and into the awaiting hands of the halfling, who then used the foe priest of Ulrich's knee as a step to grant him more reach and slashed at his throat. Leibniz fell backwards, blood gushing from his neck, a hand grasping at the wound in a vain attempt to stop the flow. Rysandria held a hand to her mouth at the carnage that took place so quickly. After a few seconds she was able to regain her voice and asked, "Where is the skull?" They looked around the room, only to see the skull sitting in a pool of blood, an evil red glow surrounding it, and growing brighter as it seemed to absorb the blood into it. A shockwave of invisible energy hit the group, making them stumble as the red light became so bright that it blinded them. A roar echoed around the room as the light faded. The party could see the manifested form of the demon of the skull. This was not just any demon, but a demon prince of Khorne, a monstrous form that exuded a threat to their lives with all of its essence. With each ominous breath it took, it seemed as if it sucked oxygen out of the room, the very air they tried to breathe. Its shadow reached to the roof of the temple as the beast towered over them and screamed triumphantly at being set free. Tordrad was first to recover as he rushed forwards. He was stopped as the demon batted him away, sending him flying into a pillar, his weapons sent scattering around it. Tobias fared no better as he was kicked aside, an action that sent him rolling towards the famed flame of Ulrich, the very flame that had caused Archaon's armies to invade the Empire. The halfling's cranium made contact with the stonework section below the flame as consciousness left him at once. The holy flame flared as if in protest at the force of evil intruding on this holy place. The great beast then focused its attention on Maestro, who it started to walk towards. Maestro could see his own reflection in the demon's black eyes, like a fly caught in a spider's web. The wizard's own fearful expression made him even more scared, as it reminded him of how much trouble he was in. The sound of gunfire brought Maestro to his senses, as a bullet, followed by a brilliant beam of light, tore through the demon's right shoulder. The red-skinned, winged beast turned to look as Rysandria held the still smoking pistol pointed directly at it. "Don't just stand there," protested the holy woman. "Shalia heals those that help themselves." "Well, I don't plan on getting hurt. I don't want to owe anyone, especially a goddess," came the wizard's reply. He raised a hand, his fingers outstretched and crackling with the Aesir force. After what seemed like an eternity, a concentrated bolt of lightning shot from Maestro's hand and flew towards the demon. As the etheric energy lashed towards the creature, it breathed out an oppressive plume of air so dense that it could be physically seen, and the space between Maestro and the huge beast shimmered in response. The spell began to lose its power as it travelled closer, as if the very essence of the demon suppressed the winds of magic. This caused it to writhe in mid-air. If an observer watched it in slow motion, they would have seen it coil like an angered serpent before rapidly dissipating away at the edges. A miniature crackling sound was all that could be heard, and a strand no bigger than a thimble was all that reached its target. As it made contact with the creature's cheek, it fizzled away pathetically. Maestro stood in place, arms outstretched in his casting position, but also trembling slightly. "Oh, well, that wasn't helpful." Dieter looked at the wizard and shook his head, before dashing forwards and slashing at the demon, attempting to sever the Achilles tendon on one of its feet as it began to stride towards the still-standing members of the group. Dieter dodged a fist that came at him, sidestepping to the right more nimbly than a man with his physical inconveniences should have. Dieter counter-attacked with his machete, striking into the right foot of the overly large foe. This made the demon stumble forward, seemingly losing its balance, but suddenly it began walking properly again, as if it had just adjusted to the damage it had taken. Rysandria took another step backwards until she walked into the wall. Her shots had been doing damage, but the creature seemingly didn't care. So strong was its life force. The holy devotee was frozen there in absolute astonishment. A roar of spite from the demon jolted her, though, out of her frightened dilemma, and she spoke loudly to the trainee physician. "That's impossible! No man could walk properly after that." Dieter replied, "Were this only a man." Tordrad pulled himself up. His body ached as he placed a hand on the side of his head. It hurt, but he'd had hangovers worse than this, though now was not the time to be thinking of anything but the battle. One mistake could mean his client's death. It could mean his own death. He shook off the blur in his vision and looked towards where he reckoned the demon to be. A massive red shape confirmed that he was looking in the right direction. The demon let out a roar that seemed to goad Tordrad to attack. His anger was somehow reacting to the bestial challenge from the creature as a maddening rage rose within him, the likes of which he had not felt since he was 17. Something buried deep within him was responding, as if pulling on his internal chains of self-control. Tordrad was determined to keep a tight hold on these chains at all costs. One hand still remained on his head as if he was concentrating on keeping his anger at bay. His other was keeping him upright, holding onto the pillar that he had been thrown into. He punched the pillar with the same hand, leaving an indentation slightly in the stonework. There was pain, but he didn't care about that right now. The pain helped him come to his senses. Memories of what happened the last time he let himself get this angry began to trickle down into his forward consciousness. No matter how hard he tried to push them back, he could still remember the blood, the screams of the people that tried to stop him, but he wondered if they too had also ended up as victims to his rage. Still, these taunting thoughts echoed through his mind as if they were driving him on from some external source.